Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. We got a ton to talk about in tonight's show. Tony Elliott's homecoming, CJ Spiller getting inducted into the Clemson Ring of Honor, breaking down the Virginia and Clemson matchup. We got all of that and more coming up in tonight's episode. But before we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We are on the road to 6,000 subscribers and appreciate all your support and help getting us there. Hit that like button. This is a live video, so the likes really do help us out on the live videos and helps project the video out to more viewers and brings more people into the channel. So appreciate your help with that. And then last but certainly not least, we have the super chat feature available. If you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football, and more specifically the All In Show, hit that super chat feature and me and Jordan will be sure to highlight, read, and respond to your question and or comment attached to that super chat. And with all of that said, and without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, man? How you doing?
Living the dream. You know me.
Right.
I told you in the back before the show that I spent the weekend painting, so this is a lot more exciting.
Jordan Bowman, the paint contractor.
Something like that. I'm not nearly as good. They shouldn't pay me.
That's right. Yeah.
But no, this is definitely more exciting, and this is a big week for Clemson for a lot of reasons. You're starting this kind of interesting stretch of your schedule, and as you mentioned, Tony Elliott's coming back home. This is the first time you've played Virginia in the regular season since 2020. So this is gonna be fun, and this is an interesting team. So I'm really excited to get break it all down.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. This is certainly a big week for Clemson football. A lot of stuff going on in this game, storylines. I mentioned CJ Spiller at the top. We'll get into kind of what that means, and talk about CJ Spiller and his playing career a little bit. That'll be fun a little bit later in the show. But just a super cool week heading into a bye week after the Virginia game. So. Get a little bit of a breather after this game, and this is you're kind of at the halfway point of your season already. This will kind of officially mark it as far as having that bye week and then on to the home stretch. So lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Sorry we are late tonight, guys. I'm running super late. Work has been insanely busy. Jordan's been patient, and we started a little bit late tonight, so I do apologize to each and every one of you. But thank you guys for showing up anyway and hanging out and waiting until the show starts. So let's give a shout-out to the comment section real quick before we get into tonight's show. John Sarian in here first, one of our moderators as well. Thank you so much for being here, John. Eric Watkins is in here. Tiggs is in here. Let's see who else. Jackson Johnson. Our buddy Jackson Johnson always in here, one of our moderators, one of our guys in here that always plugs all the stuff that we need to when it comes to Voice of College Football stuff, the Amazon link, Jordan's X account, all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much, Jackson Johnson, for being in here and helping us out with that stuff. And I think Search is in here. Hip Elf is in here. Thank you for being in here. Appreciate you. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the show tonight, Jordan. We got tons of topics to talk about, so let's waste no time. We're going to start the show with injury updates. We're getting a little bit better on the injury front, Jordan, I think, as far as Clemson goes as a whole. Couple guys working back in, couple guys we're not really sure. They're day-to-day, week-to-week, whatever Dabo's new phrase of the week is when he's asked about these various injuries. But starting with Stephylan Green and Colin Sadler, both of those guys reportedly back to practice this week, according to Dabo Swinney. Looks like both of those guys could play in this week's matchup against Virginia, so that'll be nice to get a little bit of depth back for that offensive line, and then see Stephon Green work back in. He's been out and limited for a couple weeks now, so hopefully Dabo saying he's back to practice means that he's going to play this week. So didn't say he was day-to-day, said both those guys are back to practice and working. So sounds like we may get those back. Brian Wesco, still a day-to-day guy. Not so sure we see him in this Virginia game unless they need him. I know he was dressed out for the game last week against Wake Forest as well. Or no, he was not dressed out. Sorry, that was Tyler Brown that was dressed out but didn't have his helmet. Tyler Brown, they're shutting him down until after the bye week. Sounds like he's got, a high ankle sprain. Those are tough to come back from. They take a long time to heal. Really, the only thing that's helping is time. And luckily, we haven't, they didn't have to play him last week. He's not going to play this week, and he's going to have the bye week to heal up as well. So hopefully he's ready for that home stretch. So that's kind of our injury situation right now. What are your thoughts on, will Tyler Brown being shut down affect this at all? Do you think we see Brian Wesco in this game, or do you think they try to hold him? What's your thoughts on where Clemson stands as far as the injury front heading into this Virginia game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at this point we got a pretty clear sample size of these wide receivers and the injuries. Yeah. So at this point, it's pretty clear that they're trying to, make sure that these guys are maintaining, their health first and foremost. I think they've learned their lesson over the past couple of years with the wide receiver injuries. And in terms of Bryant Wesco, I would lean towards him not playing. I think you hold him. That's probably the route they're going to choose to go, even if he feels okay, because especially when you're dealing with ankle injuries, like those things continuously, they linger, they can come back, they can be aggravated, as we learned with Tyler Brown. So I don't think they're going to play any games with it. I don't think you need him out there. I mean, you saw this offense continue to churn and operate at a pretty high level without Bryant Wesco this past Saturday. And you're not facing a much better pass defense, if we're being honest,
right.
This Saturday. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, but I wouldn't expect to see Bryant Wesco unless he wakes up that morning feeling ready to go, ankle completely good. And for Tyler Brown, I hate it. It seems like a trend with these guys, and the sophomore wide receiver curse is what I'm gonna start calling it, because it's like, man, it's like every single wide receiver we bring in that has a strong true freshman season, next season, injuries. I mean, we even going back to Bo Collins, like that was a thing. So, hell, Justin Ross in 2019, he was in and out. So like it just, that's just kind of the reality of, I don't know if it's a curse. I don't know if there's anything to it, but it's clear that, they're trying to make sure that these guys come back completely healthy, because let's face it, I mean, you're not facing teams that are, you're going to need all of those guys in order to win. So I feel like you don't see Bryant Wesco unless the game is really tight and they need somebody to go out there and make a play.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think they will try to hold Bryant Wesco in this game. I don't think there's any reason that you have to play him. The receiving core, there's been a lot of different guys to step up. Cade's been spreading the ball around like crazy this year. I think there were 10 or 11 different pass catchers in the game a week ago against Wake Forest. So, I mean, really all those guys in the receiver room have been stepping up. So I think if you can hold a guy like Brian Wesco, you go ahead and do it, right? You don't want, especially when you talk about these ankles, man, they're so easily re-aggravated and suddenly you're back to square one, right? I don't think we need him for this game. Therefore, I don't think we should play him. Same thing with Tyler Brown. They're kind of shutting him down because, according to Dabo, his recovery is kind of plateaued with that ankle. I'm assuming it's a high ankle sprain. And it's just one of those things that take time. And if I was them, I would treat Brian Wesco in the same fashion. I'd probably shut him down through the bye week and try to get him ready for that home stretch, right? November to remember, right? As Dabo likes to call it. So I think we got enough in that receiver core to kind of, get us through. and then we get into that bye week, and hopefully we get everybody healthy back that is going to come back this season, and we're ready for again that home stretch that I'm talking about. So I think we look pretty good on the injury side of things. We've had a few injuries here and there throughout the season, but nothing that has truly affected this team long term or really changed the trajectory of the season. So I think we're doing a pretty good job managing those things. And shout out to the rest of the receiving corps for kind of just playing through all that and not seemingly taking a dip when these guys can't go.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you think of a guy like Troy Stellato, he's taking advantage of the extra snaps for sure.
Right.
I mean, you saw he was a big reason why you had the offensive day that you did on this past Saturday. So excited to see him get more opportunities. Excited to see some of the younger guys get more opportunities. You saw Tink Kelly get in there a little bit, So it's in the immediate, it's kind of oh man, you don't have all your best guys out there, but and that's frustrating because especially with how fun it's been watching those guys put up points, but
right.
It's also it allows you to get some of those younger guys in. I'm not talking about Troy Stellato, obviously he's like 40 now, but the guys I mentioned, Tink Kelly, Noble Johnson got in and made a catch.
That's right.
So I think like this will be good for Clemson in the long run, and it's forcing this offense to to build its depth, especially in the wide receiver room, and which we feel pretty good about, and they're showing it right now.
Yeah, and you're seeing guys step up, and that's really what you want to see. So good so far in the injury department for the Clemson Tigers. Keep in mind, guys, catch Clemson live on your favorite audio platforms, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and search Clemson Live. You can see you can listen to, all of our long form content there, the All In show that you're listening to right now, our post game live videos, all that stuff is on there for you to digest in podcast form. So make sure you check us out on all your audio platforms. Search Clemson Live, give us a like, and help us out with that as well. Appreciate all you guys being in here. We got 41 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button while you're in here. Consider subscribing. We do the All In show every single week. All right, Jordan, moving on to the next topic of the night. We're going to keep it rolling. Does Clemson have an NIL problem? I know you made a video earlier in the week addressing the Blake Hebert decommitment. That is the third decommitment in about a month's time for the Clemson Tigers in the 2025 class. Had two big defensive linemen decommit prior to that. Some of that is attributed to NIL. Obviously, some of that is these players getting bigger opportunities at other universities. So my question to you is, does Clemson have an NIL problem? I know Clemson has a smaller alumni base. Obviously, there's not as many alumni for a school the size of Clemson as there would be for, say, a school like Ohio State or Michigan or one of those universities that just have massive undergraduate programs, right? And then what if we do have an NIL problem? What is the specific problem? Is it the messaging around Clemson? Is it maybe the importance placed upon NIL? What are your thoughts? Does Clemson have an NIL problem? And if they do, what exactly is the problem?
I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but I'm going to cheat. So y'all going to get mad at me for saying it like this, but it's yes and no. Yeah. As far as like NIL support and the funds needed to compete, I think Clemson has the funds to be pretty competitive in the NIL space. I know some people may not feel that way, but I think ultimately the issue when it comes to NIL is kind of their philosophy. And I don't even know if it's necessarily an issue. It's just what we've seen is kind of the consequence of the philosophy that they've chosen to take. Mm-hmm. And it starts with Dabo. He's made it very clear he does not want to, go out and pay a kid more, pay a high school kid or a transfer portal kid for that matter, more than what his starters are making. He's not going to want to, overspend in the high school ranks. So other schools are willing to do that, and that certainly has played a factor in some of the decommitments that Clemson has had this cycle. That's just the reality. And there's nothing wrong with those recruits for taking those opportunities. So I don't want to slander them, but it's about what Clemson as a program is willing to do, and what they how they choose to operate within the NIL space. And they have decided we're gonna give you something. It's going to be competitive, but you're not going to. I'm not going to pay a 5-star offensive tackle $1 million, in which might be more than what my starting left tackle is making. Like that's not how they're going to choose to do things. That's not how they've operated. And this is what happens, and this is kind of the consequence. It works in some cases, and there's some positives for doing it that way, because it helps with player retention, locker room culture, all of that. Because when Dave Clawson talked about it, last week. When you bring a guy in from the transfer portal, and you pay him, let's say $300K, and your starting corner is only making $100K. I'm just throwing out numbers, but he's going to want an increase. He's going to want more, or he's going to leave. And you don't want to foster that type of environment, I think, and that's the kind of environment that Clemson is trying to avoid, because that is happening at other schools for a fact. And with the way Dabo has operated his program, when you're a program that doesn't use the transfer portal, fostering an environment that will encourage the players you already have to leave is basically a death sentence. So I think that's kind of the philosophy. I'm not saying it's necessarily the right or wrong philosophy, but that is the philosophy, and that's kind of where we're at. And so you're going to have to be able to stomach, the losses, especially on the recruiting trail. But it also might pay dividends. So we'll see how it goes. And again, this in terms of high school recruiting, the cycle is not over, and Clemson is still evaluating its options. I've talked about it a little bit on my Twitter account about maybe some potential Clemson options, and we'll see how they go in terms of the quarterback sort of situation, and of course they still want to bring in another offensive lineman. So we'll see how they close this cycle out, and we might have a better picture of whether or not Clemson is really in trouble from that standpoint or not.
Yeah, certainly time will tell when it comes to this topic or this issue of NIL. Clemson has definitely gone about it a unique way. Obviously, we have talked on this channel a few times about NIL and how Clemson uses it, and they do choose to use it for roster retention. They do choose to pay the guys that have been there, pay the guys that are starting, pay the guys that have put in the work and earn the money. Not that they don't provide NIL opportunities for high school seniors transitioning and coming to Clemson. They obviously do provide NIL opportunities. But some of the numbers being thrown around by other universities, Clemson's just not going to get there. I think part of that is Clemson has kind of allowed a negative narrative to be spun when it comes to Clemson and their NIL, right? We haven't really done a good job as a university with our messaging, I think. And part of that is controlled by the national media and national media pundits and the talking heads and, people here on YouTube and other things like that, different sports reporters. But I don't think Clemson's done a great job of the messaging and the philosophy that Clemson has. We kind of ignore the narrative out there instead of kind of trying to set it straight. I think we could do a little bit better there. Just my opinion. Now, you talk about revenue sharing. That's going to be here as early as next season. So come July, revenue sharing is going to be a thing. There's going to be, some reports of $20 or so million allocated for schools to use to pay athletes, right? Not all of that is going to go to football. It really depends on the school. Schools are going to make their individual decisions on how they break up that money. And then whatever money the football team gets, they're going to have to decide how that money's divvied up within the football team. Do you pay the starters a set amount and then the backups a set amount? How are you going to break it up? Or is it all even? And then you got the 105 scholarships coming. So you're going to have to cut, Dabo said you're going to have to cut like 40 dudes off the roster, right? And have to retool your roster. So there's a lot of changes coming to college football. Dabo seems to think that the revenue sharing is going to help in this department. What is your opinion on how much the revenue sharing will help when it comes to this NIL landscape? Because I think, in my opinion, NIL is not going anywhere. Yes, there's going to be revenue sharing, and all these schools are going to be paying athletes, right, with the TV money that they receive, at least a portion of it. But I think NIL is still going to be a big player in college sports. What do you think?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think when people talk about the revenue sharing model and what that could entail, they kind of just sort of conveniently just push NIL to the side all of a sudden. And it's like, okay,
Right.
now, it's like it's a replacement for NIL. But when the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that you're going to have revenue sharing and NIL on top of that.
Right.
So while I do think revenue sharing will help, kind of clear the waters a little bit, there's still going to be a lot of, NIL situations that you're going to have to be able to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still going to be a major player in recruits' decisions, because ultimately, that's always if I have an opportunity to make more money, I have an opportunity to make more money. So even
Right.
if you are paying me, a base salary or whatever. So that's just that's the reality, and I mean that's in any profession. So that's just kind of where it's going. So I do think that NIL is still going to be a major player, but I do think the revenue sharing will certainly help in some ways kind of clear the waters a little bit and make things a little bit more above board. But NIL is still going to be a major a driving force and a potential deciding factor in a kid's decision. So
Yeah.
I think that we're going to have to. It's just kind of wait and see. It kind of feels like we're all just at the mercy of the powers that be, and so and a lot of people are trying to prognosticate about how all of this is going to go down, but the reality is we won't know till we know.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I think NIL is still going to be a big part of some of these key position recruitments, right? You talk about quarterback, you talk about, defensive end, some of these big time positions that draw the bigger NIL money. It's still going to be a huge point of emphasis, I think, in college football. And it's still going to be a difference maker for those that have the NIL money to throw around. And one of the interesting things that I heard Dabo kind of allude to in one of his press conferences this week was, we need NIL money to get us to July, to where the revenue sharing kicks in. Again, I don't really like that messaging, because to me, that tells donor and fans, we just got to get NIL money to get us to July and then we're good. No, we're not good. We
Right.
still need NIL money to compete. The revenue sharing is going to be great, and it is going to even some of this playing field, and it is going to make some of these murky waters and kind of building out your roster. I think it'll make it a little bit easier, but NIL is not going anywhere. And teams are still going to be using it as a big time recruiting tool, and you're going to continue to lose people if you're not operating in an aggressive enough manner in the NIL world that we currently live in college football. Like it or don't like it, it's here and it's not going anywhere. So that kind of stuff kind of worries me. Last thing before we move on from the NIL talk and the recruiting and the revenue sharing and all that is, are there more decommitments coming to this 2025 class?
Yeah, that's a good question. I listen. At this point in recruiting, a lot of things can happen. But as it stands right now, there's not anybody in the class currently committed that I expect to decommit right now. So that's all I can. That's all I can. Really, anyone can say is at the moment, nothing is imminent. It appears, but things change, and again, these kids always have people in their ear, and schools reaching out. We saw what happened with You saw what happened with Isaiah Campbell. You saw what happened with Blake Hebert. It's you don't know till you know in this era of recruiting. So you just have to hope that these kids, stick to their commitment.
Yeah.
It was cool to see, Gideon Davidson, kind of put out what he tweeted out like a farewell to Blake Hebert, but it was clear that, he was not going to follow him to Notre Dame, which was a small possibility. The Notre Dame was trying to get Gideon to get Blake and Gideon as sort of like a package deal.
That would have hurt.
It didn't really work.
That would have hurt.
Yeah. So, that's just kind of the reality. You still have got, a lot of schools are still after guys like Tay Harris, Braden Jacobs. They had just had the 24/7 Sports just had a recent rankings update. Both of them got major jumps up. Amari Adams is now a 5-star in the 24/7 Sports rankings. He's certainly been a guy that's been reached out to by a ton of schools. And you've had to fight at different points to, kind of put out those fires. So again, signing day is, 2 months away, but you don't really know. A lot of stuff can happen, but again, I'm not expecting anything soon or imminent right now.
Yeah. Let's hope that we have stopped the bleeding when it comes to the 2025 class. I see some people talking in the comment section. The IPTAY money cannot be used for NIL money. They're two separate pots of money. You have your IPTAY money. So if you're donating to IPTAY, none of that money can be used for NIL. All NIL money has to be donated through the 110 Society, and only the money directly donated to the 110 Society can be used for NIL. So I know there's some misconceptions out there with some fans that don't understand it. And unless you're really reading into this stuff, you're not going to understand it. But yeah, the $130+ million that, IPTAY raised last year or whatever it was, that doesn't help us with
none of that is going to.
It'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't. So I think things will get a little bit better when we get into revenue sharing, but the NIL still got to be something that you're constantly being aggressive with and usually picking your spots and where to use it. So it's not going away. It just is what it is. I don't necessarily like where college football has gone. I like some of the stuff. I don't like everything, obviously. But the changes aren't complete yet. I'm still holding out hope that we get to a more stable and better version of college football than we are currently in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, things will work themselves out in the end, but until then, it might be a bumpy ride and there's going to be some frustrations and some losses along the way. I think that's just that's the reality for everybody. So, but I do think I tend to have the hopeful, outlook that things will work itself out, and the sport will be at least in a stable place. I don't know if it's a better place, but at least stable place.
Yeah, more stability than we have right now, which is essentially none. So. All right, we'll leave that there. We got 51 people in the live chat right now. If you guys could just stay with us for a couple minutes, we're going to hear from Mark Rogers and the voice of college football bets.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the voice of college football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
All right, guys, you heard Mark there talking about the Voice of College Football bets. If you're into sports betting, and that's what makes some of these games exciting to you on Saturdays, be sure to go check out the main channel and go check out Mark's Patreon, Voice of College Football bets. Go make yourself some money. Go have some fun and make some of these otherwise monotonous matchups a little bit more exciting to watch on Saturdays. Tell them that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you, and we would greatly appreciate your support in that way. All right, Jordan, moving right along through the show tonight, kind of put a bow on Wake Forest and the game that we just saw this past Saturday. Again, pretty dominant performance from the Tigers, I think, outside of the first quarter. Started off a little bit slow in the game, a little bit sluggish. First 2 drives weren't doing very much. Wake Forest was moving the ball a little bit in the first quarter on the defense, popping some runs, getting some passes down the field and whatnot. But really from the second quarter on, we really played as a complete football team and kind of poured it on. And it really is a contrast when you look at the stats between the first half and the second half. First half, they had 126 passing yards, 69 rushing yards. They finished the game with 146 passing yards. So only 20 passing yards in the second half, 87 rushing yards, 18 rushing yards in the second half. So the defense really clamped down. It was a dominant performance. The defense got those 2 turnovers that really kind of turned the tide and changed the momentum in the game. The offense capitalizes on it, and the rest is kind of history. What were your kind of thoughts as you gone back and watched the game, and anything that kind of stood out that we didn't hit in the post-game live?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, there wasn't really much, that really jumped out at me. It was just a really complete performance. Probably your most complete of the year. It was pretty nice to just see them keep plugging along. That first quarter was rough. They had some miscues. Cade Klubnik was inaccurate. But they were just like, the plays are there. We just got to go make them. And that's what you saw. I think one stat that really put things into perspective, just kind of the how they flipped the script on both sides of the ball. In the first half, Wake had 196 yards of offense. At the end of the third quarter, they had 184 yards of offense. That's pretty crazy. They had negative 12 yards total in the third quarter.
Yes.
So, I think that just kind of tells the whole story. Cade really settled in. His receivers made plays: Jake Brenningstool, Antonio Williams, Troy Stellato. Those 3 kind of led it. And then, of course, Phil Maffa on the ground just continues to be really, really good. The offensive line, they just get – honestly, the offensive line they get better as the game goes on, and they just kind of really impose their will. And you saw it in that fourth quarter when Clemson was just kind of on cruise control, but they were just bullying Wake's defensive line up front, and they had gotten a couple of their better defensive linemen back. So that was pretty impressive, and they moved the ball at will, and just a really complete performance. A lot to build on from there, and we'll see if they can carry it into Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, talking about the offensive line, I mean, the mix-up that we had at the offensive line and playing guys in different positions. I think we played all 3 centers snapped in the game. Trent Howard played tackle at one point in time in the game. Harris Sewell got a lot of snaps in the game and looked really good. That offensive line has been nothing short of spectacular when it comes to the expectations coming into the season for what they were going to be. We thought that Matt Luke would have an effect on the offensive line. We thought they would get better, right? I don't think anybody thought that they would be this good up to this point in time in the season. It truly is quite a turnaround, and they're just playing as a group. You hear the different player interviews throughout the week, and I think it was Keith Adams Jr. that was interviewed this week, and he was talking about, he's like, I just go out to random restaurants and all the offensive linemen are always there eating together, and they're just doing things together all the time. So you can tell they're a close-knit group. They're very cohesive, and it shows on the field. They really operate as a unit, and they're really showing that they can roll a few other guys in and out in there and still execute at a very high level. So love to see what the offensive line's doing. The wide receivers, I mean, Jake Brenningstool had a day. Troy Stellato had himself a day. Antonio Williams had a day. Good to see the ball just get spread around. Like I said, 10 receiving targets in the game. Cade Klubnik had another great game outside of those first couple drives where he just wasn't on, right? Didn't look well, but really got it going. Confidence never was shaken. He just went out there and executed right after Wake Forest put that touchdown on the board. Clemson offense goes out there, answers. Defense comes up with 2 turnovers. Offense capitalizes on each turnover. And before you know it, it's a 21-7 game, and it was all over after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they're just going to continue. I mean, they can only get better. I mean, and that's the exciting part. I'm excited to see what the final, form of this group is. Because, it is a very, at this point, it's a very complete offense. You have a lot, you have answers at receiver, you have answers at tight end, you have a really, really strong offensive line. Kate, your quarterback is playing, borderline Heisman level football right now. If you go look at the odds, he's like, I think he's up to 6th or something in the Heisman. I know he's top 10.
He's climbing up there. He's climbing up there. It's really good, man. So I'm excited to see how this team continues to grow, see if they can carry the momentum into Saturday, because they'll have some opportunities, I think. Yeah. Just got to keep it rolling. And anytime your defense holds an offense, regardless of who it is, to 38 total yards in the second half, you're doing something right.
Yep.
So shout out to that defense. They're starting to round into form. I think they're starting to get a little bit better and start kind of feeling some things out that they were struggling with early on in the season and getting some of those things buttoned up. And part of that is getting a couple guys back healthy, like Peter Woods. Obviously, you feel the effect of that guy, and being in on that jumbo package with DeMonte Capehart and Peyton Page, and
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All those guys over there was super cool to watch. And I think it was Blake Miller talking about it this week in an interview about, they were like, yeah, we had no doubt we were scoring on that play. Like, it was 100% going in. So it's cool to see them out there having fun. I forgot to mention Antonio Williams throwing that beautiful pass.
Wonderful, yeah.
To Jake Brenningstool for a touchdown. Just an absolute dot. I think we might have a quarterback controversy. I don't know.
We might, man.
I was looking at the QB ratings, and apparently Antonio Williams got a better rating than Cade. So maybe Dabo needs to make a switch.
He does. I believe his passer rating is 668 or something like that.
I ain't never heard of anybody have a passer rating like that.
I don't know.
He's got to be better. But no, shout out to Antonio Williams. It was truly a dot. It was a great pass. Jake Brenningstool hauls it in, and it's a touchdown. Clemson's out there having fun. Everybody's enjoying it. As Dabo always says, the fun is in the winning. And hopefully they're continuing to grow and get better. But overall, dominant team win. I think the first win of the season that you can truly say that the offense and defense kind of played complementary football for pretty much the whole game, if you kind of excuse part of or all of the first quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's not really much else to add on to it. I mean, Wake it's just a complete game. Probably your most complete game of the year when you look at it in totality. Just very little, very little to really gripe about. So pretty happy.
All right, we got 50 people in the live chat right now. Hit that like button while you guys are in here. Help us get as close to that 50 number as possible. It really helps to project out the live video. Appreciate your help with that. Also, keep in mind the College Football Show with Mark Rogers, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Voice of College Football channel, the main channel with Mark Rogers. Go check it out. He's there every single morning, 10 a.m., talking everything college football. Tell him that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you, and we would appreciate your support with that. Jordan, this is going to be a fun topic to address, man. CJ Spiller this Saturday will be inducted into the Clemson Ring of Honor. He'll be memorialized in Death Valley right there on the stadium for forever. One of the biggest pieces in Clemson football history when it comes to changing the culture and the trajectory of a program. He truly is like that ground zero guy that kind of got the Dabo era started, if you will. He owns a ton of running back records. His jersey's retired at Clemson. Nobody really more deserving than CJ Spiller. He truly is a Clemson man through and through, if you will, and honestly developed into a pretty nice coach. You look at the running backs that he's been able to develop. You hear how they talk about him, how they feel about him, and he's just like, you can look back at CJ Spiller's playing career and just see so many things that evolved at Clemson because, one, he came to Clemson. Two, he stayed for that senior year that everybody thought he was leaving, right? Dabo in his presser this week talked about that story about how CJ Spiller left his office in tears and he thought he was gone. And, he goes out and does the big press conference and, at the end kind of is like, oh, I'm coming back. And, everybody's shocked. Everybody's excited. You remember back to his pro day where,
Yep.
It was raining. It was a mess. It didn't go well at all. And what was born out of that indoor facility, right? That indoor practice facility. That Georgia Tech game, probably one of the most iconic games that he ever played in as a Clemson Tiger. Didn't go our way, but still an absolute
out there, man.
Clinic from CJ Spiller. He couldn't have ran another half yard on that field. He literally left it all on the field. And that game truly does epitomize like CJ Spiller's career at Clemson with just leaving it all on the field for the Tigers. So talk a little about CJ Spiller, what you remember from his playing days and how huge and awesome this is for him to get inducted into the Ring of Honor at Clemson University.
I mean, it's amazing, man. I mean, he's really one of the formative, and I'm going to make some of our viewers feel old, but he's definitely one of the formative players in my Clemson fandom. He's one of the first jerseys I ever owned. Just special player, and it really is incredible that he even ended up at Clemson, because a guy like him was supposed to end up at Florida or Miami or whatever.
Could have went and won a national title with Florida. Actually,
he could have, but he took a chance on Clemson, and Dabo was instrumental in that recruitment, and it just what he meant in terms of laying the foundation for what this program eventually became. I mean, I don't think you can overstate it. I mean, you could argue he's the most important player in school history.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see him get this honor. And not just, he's showing up to receive the honor and go home.
Right.
He's a coach,
right.
It just all of that, put together, his journey kind of coming full circle. He goes to the league, has a nice, solid career, and, makes it back to where he came from, as a coach, where he gets to kind of give back, and also just be a part of the program that he chose to come to, and helped build. Like that's pretty awesome, man. I can't say, too many good words about CJ Spiller and what he is as not just as a football player and coach, but as a person. And just happy for him, because it's going to be cool to it's probably going to be a little emotional when we watch that.
Yeah.
Because he really is a special human being, and I think I hope they're going to do him justice on the ceremony, and I'm sure it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, I know it's going to be great, and for the fans going to the game, it's going to be done before the game even starts. So if you got tickets to the game, make sure you get to Death Valley early, get in your seat so you don't miss the ceremony with CJ Spiller, because obviously he's got to go coach a game. They would traditionally do it at halftime, but since he's a coach and he'll be a little bit preoccupied with the game, they're going to do it before the game starts. So I know Clemson's going to do it big. They always do really good with this kind of stuff and honoring former players and stuff like that. And none bigger than CJ Spiller, especially when you think about the Dabo era of Clemson football. He truly does epitomize kind of that ground zero player that kind of got it all started, kind of got the ball rolling, and really truly is the reason that Clemson is where it's at today as far as the national landscape of college football. And I don't think any of that can be overstated. Can't wait to see the unveiling of his name up in Death Valley. That'll be there forever. Like I said, his jersey's already retired. One of my favorite Clemson players of all time, and his time at Clemson ain't done. He's still contributing. He's still winning games or helping to win games for the Tigers, just like he was as a player, developing all these great running backs that we have, and just list off the guys that he's worked with already. And his career is still very young. Excited to see what his coaching career turns into. Hopefully he's always with the Clemson Tigers. But I'm excited for Saturday. I can't wait to watch it. And it's going to be really cool and really fun to see. Too bad I can't be there in person.
Yeah, man. I wish I was going too. But I know it's going to be really, really awesome. But yeah, and he'll get to reunite with his, some of his old, he gets to reunite with one of his old running backs, and
That's
obviously
right.
his predecessor as running backs coach. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be absolutely electric. I can't wait. I know the Clemson fans will do it justice. They'll be there. They'll be going crazy, and they will give him his due recognition that he absolutely deserves. So I can't wait to see it on TV. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got 50 people in the live chat. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. If you have not already, consider subscribing to the channel. We do this all-in show right here every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Come check it out. We also do some various other videos throughout the week and the post-game live on Saturdays immediately following every single Clemson game. Thank you guys so much for your support. Getting into the comment section. As you guys know, at the end of the show, we will turn it over to you guys in the live chat, and we will let you drive the show when we are done with the planned portion. So stick around for that. I hope you do, and consider subscribing. Jordan, one of the other huge storylines for this coming Saturday is the coach of Virginia, and that is none other than longtime Clemson assistant coach, offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott, coming back to the Valley for the very first time. Obviously, he was a player at Clemson. Dabo Swinney coached him when Dabo Swinney was just the wide receiver coach. He was a wide receiver here from 2000 to 2003. First time kind of Dabo coaches against a former assistant as a head coach. So that's going to be a big time first time. Tony Elliott will be back in Death Valley, not wearing any Clemson garb. So I'm sure there'll be some mixed emotions there for him as well. Dabo Swinney kind of talked about this quite a bit in his presser. He was asked by the media several different questions about Tony Elliott and kind of talked about, how Tony Elliott decided to take the Virginia job and how he was truly the guy, fit for doing that job. Everybody knows how his first year in Virginia went with all the unfortunate events that happened with UVA football and the subsequent canceling of the rest of their season because of all the stuff that happened there. And that was really unfortunate. But Dabo kind of talked about, there was no better coach to lead them through that than Tony Elliott. And I do believe that he won 2 national titles here at Clemson. He's done great stuff as both a player and a coach at Clemson. What are your kind of thoughts for Tony Elliott's homecoming? How weird is it going to be to see him on the other sideline being a head coach wearing another team's gear. What are your thoughts heading into Saturday?
Yeah, it's going to be really awesome, man. It's just cool to see Tony back in the Valley. He's another instrumental part of Clemson's rise to prominence over the last decade plus. And just to kind of see him as a coach, it's kind of a testament to Dabo, and especially when you think about Tony Elliott's beginnings and kind of how he got into coaching. It was not the conventional route. He was a manager at Michelin, or head. He was pretty high up, but he was at Michelin Tires before he decided to volunteer as for nothing as a coach at South Carolina State.
Right.
It's just it's a different path, but Dabo, I kept tabs on him and knew that he even said, I knew that he was eventually going to come coach for me, because he could see the ability and the talent that he had. And now we're fast forward, over almost 15 years later, and he's a head coach of his own Power 4 program. And he's having a decent success this year, which is really cool when you consider kind of what he had to deal with to start out. And it's just, again, it's a testament to what Dabo has built, and also just how special of a coach that Tony Elliott is. And I think he got some undue criticism towards the end of his tenure. And it didn't necessarily end the best. But Tony, you don't go on the run you do without having Tony Elliott, in the program as your offensive coordinator, along with Jeff Scott. Phenomenal recruiter. I never heard anybody say a bad thing about Tony Elliott, and excited to have him back in the Valley. And it's going to be a pretty bittersweet and cool moment. After the game, when the coaches come and hug or shake hands, it's definitely going to be more of a special moment, just because of the history. So that's going to be pretty cool as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Tony Elliott's recruiting prowess, big reason Cade Klubnik is a Clemson Tiger is because of Tony Elliott. So that was maybe a parting gift that he gave the Tigers before he headed off to be the Virginia head coach. You talk about his tenure and how he got into coaching, not the traditional way. And Dabo talked about how he contacted him when he was an engineer over at Michelin, and how he was like, well, make sure you really want to coach. Go volunteer somewhere. And he did, right? Volunteered to South Carolina State, then went to Furman for a couple years, and then basically spent, every single year after that from 2011 to 2021 as a Clemson coach, right? First a running backs coach, and then a co-offensive coordinator with Jeff Scott, and then but always the play caller, and then he became the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach in his last season. So you mentioned kind of the animosity that was kind of angled his way in probably his last season as a Clemson Tiger play caller, and some of that was warranted. Some of it was not all his fault. Obviously, we weren't good at some position groups, particularly wide receiver. We weren't good at quarterback. We weren't good at offensive line. We basically weren't good anywhere. And he got a lot of that criticism. But, a couple years removed now as Tiger fans, I think we can look back and certainly see that it was definitely not all his fault, although some of it was. But we can appreciate everything that Tony Elliott did for Clemson football. Like you said, you don't win 2 national titles without Tony Elliott. He was the play caller for each one of those national titles. And I know people have talked about Jeff Scott and Jeff Scott and Jeff Scott and Jeff Scott. Jeff Scott didn't call a single play for Clemson. Tony Elliott called the plays. So I think we can all give him his due credit and give him a true Death Valley welcome back, and then get the job done, and we can hug after the game. But when that clock when that first quarter starts and that whistle blows, it's game time, and it's time to blow Virginia off the field, and then we can hug and smile after the game when the W is in hand.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, make sure, speaking of Saturday, noon kickoff for the Virginia game, make sure you guys are here for the post-game live video that me and Jordan will do immediately following the game on Saturday. We'll be here to break down every single thing that we saw, give our thoughts, and then field some comments and questions from you guys as well. So I hope you'll come check that out again Saturday, probably around 3:30-ish, depending on when the game ends, about 15 or so minutes after the game ends. Me and Jordan will fire up StreamYard. We'll go live and we'll give you a complete post-game breakdown of what we saw. Hope to see you guys there. All right, Jordan, the time has come. We've turned the page on Wake Forest. We've talked about CJ Spiller getting inducted into the Ring of Honor. We talked about Tony Elliott's homecoming. Now it's finally time to talk about Clemson versus Virginia, the offense versus the defense, the matchup that we have coming this Saturday. And I really wanted to start it off with this Virginia offense and Anthony Calandria, right? The QB for Virginia really is, Dabo kind of dubbed him as a playmaker, kind of a do-it-all QB, a mobile guy, a guy that thrives on broken plays. He really thrives off of chaos outside of the pocket and kind of just creating. Got two good running backs. Xavier Brown is kind of their more explosive dudes. He got less carries, but he actually leads the team in rushing, 46 carries for 334 yards. Kobe Pace, a guy that all Clemson fans should know, spent a couple seasons with the Tigers before following Tony Elliott to Virginia. He is their feature back. He gets the bulk of the carries there, got 71 carries on the season for 331 yards. But really everything runs through the quarterback there. What are your thoughts on this Virginia offense? What do they do well, and how do you see this Clemson defense stacking up against them? And how do we stop what they want to do offensively?
Yeah, I think this Virginia offense, watching them, I think first and foremost, the run game isn't emphasized, but specifically the quarterback run. Anthony Calandria is a guy that they use on a ton of designed runs, and they let their backs work off of the threat of his legs. Kobe Pace is definitely the power back. He's definitely developed into a really nice player, I think he's gonna be a guy you're gonna have to wrap up. You're gonna have to tackle because he'll drag you for an extra couple of yards.
Right.
And then you mentioned Xavier Brown, definitely the more explosive back. So they have a nice little 1-2 punch there, and Anthony Calandria is definitely a huge threat with his legs. So it starts with that, but they do when they feel like it, they will spread you out and they will throw it around the field and let Anthony Calandria use his playmaking ability and get the ball out to his receivers. It starts with 6'4", 220-pound outside receiver Malachi Fields. He is a dude. He's really, really good. One of the better receivers in the ACC. They target him almost double anybody else. I think he has 37 catches over on the year. The next closest has 19, I believe. Their tight end, Tyler Neville. So first and foremost, Malachi Fields in the passing game, he's the guy that Anthony Calandria is going to go to when the play breaks down, or he's the first guy he's going to look for. So, making sure that you have him, covered and you're accounting for him on every single play. That's certainly a big deal. I think this is the strength of this Virginia team for sure. Is this offense really well put together? I mentioned their tight end Tyler Neville, really nice player as well. And he's also a nice little safety blanket for Anthony Calandria when things get in trouble. The thing is as dynamic as Anthony Calandria is, that dynamicism, I guess, or dynamic ability also comes with some. He'll make mistakes. He'll throw you the ball. That's just kind of the nature of how he plays. He's certainly a gunslinger. That's how he played last year. They kind of let him play free because that's how that offense generates a lot of points and a lot of yards in the games that they've won. And so I think there'll be the opportunity to create turnovers if you can get pressure on him and make him put the ball in harm's way, because he's very, very aggressive, and he will try to make plays down the field, even if sometimes they're not there. So I think that's going to be important for this Clemson defense is getting a consistent pass rush, which I think if anything, I definitely still want to see more improvement from defensively. We just the pressure and sack numbers have not been there. Tackles for loss have been, but not necessarily the quarterback pressures. I feel like sometimes the quarterbacks he's played have gotten too much time to survey the field and dice you up. So I think that first and foremost, that's going to be the thing that I need to see this defense improve on. They also will use their backs in the passing game, so that's another thing that they're going to have to take into account. Kobe Pace, I think he has 19 catches on the year. So they will throw the ball to their backs and use them in the passing game as well. It has all the hallmarks of kind of it's very similar to what Clemson ran under Tony Elliott. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's going to be they're going to force you to account for every single position player, skill player on any given play, because they could potentially get the ball. So.
Right.
This will be the determining factor of whether or not this is a more competitive game or another game that you win by a comfortable margin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, Jordan, when you were talking about the QB pressure. I think that's going to be a true key when it comes to slowing down this UVA offense. You got to make the quarterback uncomfortable. Right, you got to squeeze them in that pocket, and really, what you want to do is control rushes. Right, you want to maintain your lane. The last thing you need to do is let Calandria get outside the pocket and start creating and just letting stuff develop, doing scramble drill type plays and looking for receivers down the field, or taking off and gashing you for 10, 12, 20-yard rushes. Right, that's something that Clemson has shown the propensity this year to allow to happen, let things break contain, and yards be picked up that way. Something you can't allow to happen with Calandria this week. You can't allow him to get into rhythm. You can't allow him to get comfortable getting outside the pocket, creating with his legs, because before you know it, they're going to be converting third and longs. And it's going to be because you let him break contain, and he's going to take off, and it's going to become very frustrating for the defense. They're going to be converting third downs when they shouldn't be. So maintain your rush lane, squeeze him in that pocket, make him uncomfortable, speed him up, force him to play hero ball, force him to try to make plays that aren't there, bait him in turnovers, and this can get out of hand really quickly. On the other hand, you let him get outside the pocket, you let him start creating and doing things off script, it could become somewhat of a tighter game, at least early, I think. So I think the defense matches up pretty well. Obviously have to maintain our rushing lanes, get pressure on the QB. But I think our defense is going to do well with tackles for loss. They're going to do those screen plays. Tony Elliott likes to do them a lot. And I think our DBs have shown that they like to blow those plays up. Our linebackers are athletic and fast enough to kind of run sideline to sideline. So I don't see Virginia having a whole lot of success doing that. So overall, I think it's a pretty good matchup for the defense, but you just got to stay disciplined and do your job. And I think it'll end up pretty well for the Tigers. Transitioning to this Virginia defense, Jordan, that defensive front is really good for Virginia, right? That's kind of where it starts with them. But Cade Klubnik and the rest of that Clemson offense have been playing really well for the past few weeks, right? A little bit slow start last week, but really been finding a bunch of different weapons, right? We talked about the receiving core stepping up and the offensive line play, and obviously you got Phil Maffa, and then even Keith Adams Jr. had himself a day last week, and Jay Haynes has been good in spurts for you this season. So what's kind of your thoughts on how this UVA defense is going to attack this Clemson offense and try to limit what we like to do?
Yeah, I think what we've seen from this Virginia defense is they are going to do whatever it takes to try and stop the run. I think that's something that they were really, really poor at last year, and they've certainly improved a good bit. I believe they are 49th in yards per rush nationally. That's not outstanding, but compared to where they were last year,
Right.
they were one of the worst Power 4 rush defenses. And so they've made a significant effort to improve in that aspect. So I believe that's going to be how they're going to game plan this Clemson team. They're going to try and limit Phil Maffa. Of course, when you do that, it definitely means your second level defenders and your secondary is vulnerable, and they have certainly been vulnerable this year. This is not a very good pass defense. I believe they're 112th in the country. They are not. They're not very good. So, I do think there will be plays to be had in the passing game, similar to Wake. And, it's just about picking your spots and Cade continuing to play the way he has. And as long as his playmakers make plays, I think you'll be able to move the ball and score points on this defense. So, and of course, that'll open things up for Phil Maffa. And one thing I'm interested to see about this Virginia defense is I think this is by far the best offense that they have played. I thought they held up well against Louisville this past week. They probably should have won, to be honest.
Definitely should have won that game.
That was pretty disappointing, and they could, but I'm sure that was kind of a gut-wrenching loss.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to see is I think this is the best offense they've played, and I think this is the best offensive line they've played this year. And so I want to see how that defensive front holds up. They're not a heavy, pass rush team. I think they only have about 12 sacks on the year. So I think you should be able to to hold up pretty well against this Virginia front. It really is just about making the plays when they're there, and I think you'll be able to move the ball and score points on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And this, talking about just this Virginia team as a whole, going back to even last year, they got a lot of close losses. This team has had some of those gut-wrenching losses that you talk about that happened last week against Louisville. But, this team truly comes in, playing for something. They're 4-2 on the season. They got one loss in the ACC, obviously, last week to Louisville. That was a game that came down to the fourth quarter. They absolutely could have won that game. Mistakes in the fourth quarter definitely plagued them, and they ended up losing. Their only other loss on the season is to a Maryland team where they turned the ball over 4 times and still had an opportunity to win the game. Obviously didn't, and you probably shouldn't win a game where you turn the ball over 4 times. But this is a team that's going to come out and really try to give Clemson their best shot, right? Again, I said they're 4-2 on the season. They still control their destiny in the ACC. If they can eke out a win in Death Valley against Clemson, they're in the driver's seat to kind of make some noise in the ACC. So I think Clemson gets their best shot. Obviously, they're going to be playing off of emotion. They know the magnitude of this game. I know Tony Elliott talked about in his press conference how, he's addressed this team a couple times this week and told them this game is not about me. This is about, us playing as a team, and this is it. This is like any other game, but everybody knows that's not true. That's coach speak. This is not any other game, right? It's not any other game for Clemson either. This is Tony Elliott. This is a guy that was with the program for 10 plus years, majority of that time as your offensive coordinator. It's not just any game, right? It's Dabo's first time playing against an assistant coach. Not only assistant coach, but this is a guy that he coached as a wide receiver when he was a wide receiver coach, and then got to hire him later on in life as his running back coach, and then obviously grew into his offensive coordinator and won 2 national titles together. So I know both coaching staffs are probably trying to take some emotion out of the game, but this is definitely going to be a very emotionally charged game. And then you pile on the fact that, CJ Spiller's getting inducted into the Ring of Honor. This is going to be a juiced environment, I think, on Saturday. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And This is a UVA team that is definitely much improved from last year. So I do want to put that out there. So I think this is a game that you can't sleepwalk into, or it could be. It's a game that you expected, that's a little bit more competitive than you expected. So I think as long as you execute your game plan, I think the game will play out the way you expect it. So come out focused. You're at home crowd should be, even for a noon kick, should still be pretty good.
Right.
And just kind of and do what you've done all season.
That's right. Yep. Take care of business. Win in convincing fashion. Get out of there healthy. To your point, should be a pretty healthy crowd. Everybody going to the game, as far as Clemson fans, have a reason to get to the stadium early. So should be a good crowd. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got 40 people in the live chat right here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hit that like button if you have not already. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do the All In Show right here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We do post-game live videos immediately following every single Clemson game, and we do videos throughout the week. I'm sure you guys caught. And if you haven't caught Jordan's video on Blake Hebert decommitting from the Clemson Tigers, go check that out. Not right now, but after the video.
Hold off on that.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. But the time has come, Jordan. Spread, score prediction. We're going to talk about it. We've talked about the matchup. Now it's time to talk about the point spread and the over-under for this game. The over-under opened up at 57.5. It remains at 57.5 for the game. So the spread opened at 22.5. Last I looked at it before we came on the show is 21.5 according to ESPN. So let's hear it. What's your thoughts on the over/under and the spread on this game for this noon kick against Virginia?
Yeah, in terms of the point spread, the over hit last week against Wake Forest. I could see it hitting the over again. 57.5. Let me see. Hold on, 57. Applied score is like 39-18 type of score. I could see that. I do think you get to the 40s. So I'll say over. Final score: Clemson 42, Virginia 17.
Gotcha. I'll go with the over as well. I think Clemson covers the point spread. I think Virginia could make some plays early in this game, but I just trust the defense's ability to make adjustments. I've seen it several times this season. Wes Goodwin make in-game adjustments and really start to shut down an offense and what they're doing early on in a game. I think if Virginia has any success, it will go similar to that. They might have a little success early, but Wes Goodwin will have the ability to make the in-game adjustments. And let's remember that Wes Goodwin is very familiar with Tony Elliott's offense. He was, an analyst at that time, and Tony Elliott did use him for self-scout and things like that. So he is familiar with the offense that Tony Elliott likes to run. So, I think the defense will get it done. And Clemson gets it done as a whole. I will go 45-16. Clemson gets the dub. Tony Elliott does not get it done against his former team, especially not in the Valley. Love you, Tony Elliott, but you're gonna have to tote a big L on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right.
You picked your side.
All right. I think that's going to do it for the Virginia preview. What do we have up next?
That does it for the Virginia score prediction, does it for the Virginia preview. Last thing before we get into the comment section is BYOG or sell.
That's right. I almost forgot.
How could you forget? The most popular segment I think that we do on the All In Show is BYOG or sell. So we will do one or two, and then maybe do a couple from the comment section, and then we will transition to regular comments. So we got 36 people in the live chat right now. Stick around, get into the comment section, ask your questions, make your comments. Me and Jordan are going to spend the next little bit after this segment to chop it up with you guys and answer your questions and respond to your comments. All right, Jordan. BYOG or sell? Clemson does not score the first points in this game.
Oh, well, I think you got your okay, so let's see. You scored first in every game except for Georgia and Wake, right? I'm trying to
Yes.
think.
And last week was the only week that you allowed points in the first quarter.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm selling that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm selling too. I was trying to throw Tony a bone, but nah.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. BYOG or sell. Clemson holds Anthony Calandria to under 200 passing yards.
I will buy.
Okay.
I think our defense is. I think we're starting to round out and starting to figure some things out. I trust this defense. I trust Wes Goodwin's ability to adjust. I think he is familiar with a lot of what Virginia is going to try to do, and I don't think they're going to have very much success. So I will buy.
I'm going to sell just for the fact that I suspect Clemson's going to limit their run game in this game, and from what I've seen from Virginia, they are perfectly fine with dropping Anthony Calandria back a million times if they have to in a game.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily it's not that I think that, the secondary is going to get, lit up, but just the sheer number of volume and attempts, kind of like what we saw with Brock Glenn against Florida State. He threw like the ball 41 times or something like that. And got to 200, something like 200 passing yards, but it wasn't like overly efficient or explosive. Like I could see a situation where that happens. So I'm going to sell for me.
All right, we'll do one more piece and then we'll turn it over to the comment section. All right, BYOG or sell? Troy Stellato gets his second touchdown of the season in this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've definitely made an effort to get, to target him. I mean, especially with the increased snap count. I'll BYOG. I'll buy it. Sure. No particular reason necessarily, but I do think he'll. Yeah, there will be plays to be made against this Virginia pass defense, and so one of them's got to go to him potentially. Now it doesn't necessarily have to go to him, but it
doesn't have to. But I mean, when you think about where the receiving core is right now, right? Tyler Brown's out for sure. We think that Brian Wesco's probably going to be held in this game. So that just increases the opportunity for a guy like Troy Stellato, right? His snaps are automatically going to go up with those two guys out. So I think because of that, he probably gets in the end zone again this week. So that's kind of why I lean towards he will get another touchdown this week. But again, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. BYOG or sell. Clemson forces 2 or more turnovers in this game.
We forced 2 last week. I think this game could get to a point where Calangier's got to kind of start forcing the issue. So I'll buy.
I think I'm with you. I think it should. My intuition, my
Yeah,
logic
part of
says,
me's like, I don't know, but when I think about how I kind of foresee this game going, I think it does get to a point where he's going to have to try to make plays downfield, and I think with our cornerbacks, especially if he tries to test Terrell, and even some of our safety play has been definitely getting, definitely playing really well, and RJ Mickens, somebody like that. So I think there's definitely a potential that he could get a little careless or try to force some things that aren't there, just trying to keep up with the Clemson offense. So I'll buy.
all right.
All right, Jordan, that does it for our portion of the BYOG or sell. But I know the comment section has a couple of their own because they always do.
Yes, they do. And let's see what y'all are talking about. Tiggs says BYOG or sell. Maffa gets 125 yards rushing versus UVA. 125.
125.
Tough number.
That is a tough number.
I'm going to sell. Because I just something tell. I mean, they do. Again, they're going to do what they can to limit the run game, and I don't know. We've seen this team go away from Phil Maffa at times, and
Yeah.
he has not had a game with a ton of volume yet. I mean, he had, last week he had 20 carries. And that's the most he's had all year, I think.
No, he had 25 against FSU.
That's right. Okay, yeah, he did.
That was his season high, and he's only gone over 125 one time, and that was against FSU with the 25 carries. So,
okay.
The stats would side with you, Jordan, to sell on that. Although he's had 4 100-plus yard rushing games, he's only gone over 125 once, and that took him 25 carries to get there. So I don't know that he gets 25 carries in this game, especially if the scoreboard starts looking lopsided. You're right. Like they just show that they'll pull Maffa, right? And rightfully so. You don't want Maffa out there getting unnecessary carries when a game's in hand. The last thing you need is him going out there rolling an ankle or, banging up a shoulder or something crazy like that, and then you don't have him for the stretch of the season. So, I'm with you. I don't think he gets to 125.
Dylan says BYOG or sell. Cade breaks away for a 20-plus yard run for a touchdown again in this game. 20-plus, I'm going to sell. I feel like 20-plus, that's just a lot. That's a lot for a quarterback. I know he's done it a couple of times this season. Yeah. No, I could see him having a rushing touchdown in this game, but it'd probably be a red zone goal line situation.
I will buy just to be a contrarian on this.
That's fair. That's fair.
Just so we're not in lockstep on this. I'll buy it.
Yeah. I'm
for no other reason other than you said so.
Yeah. I'm not mad at it. John, BYOG or sell. Stellato gets a big yards after catch play on Saturday. Well, what is your definition of big? I guess that depends. I guess most people define explosive as like 20 plus.
That's what I would say, 20 plus.
Yeah. I mean, he had one.
I think I'll buy because he's gonna get open. Yeah. I mean, Troy Stellato is going to get open. It's just going to if Cade sees him and hits him. I think I'll buy on that.
I'll buy it.
Hope he gets one of those big explosive plays for a touchdown. So, go with that.
All right. Let me see. One more from David. Buy or sell. Maffa totally destroys another DB. I'll buy. Yeah, BYOG.
Yeah, I'll buy that. He's starting to make that a weekly occurrence. I don't know what
somebody's getting hit.
I don't know what poor defensive back or linebacker or whoever is going to be in his way this time, but it probably happens again.
Man, going back and watching that Wake Forest game, man, Chase Masterson for Wake Forest, number 45.
That poor guy.
He had one of the worst. I felt so bad for him, man. That was rough. Because not only did he get run over by Phil Maffa a couple of times, he was the linebacker that got swallowed up by Peter Woods on the goal line run. Like
he's just having a rough night, man. he's just having a rough night. He was probably ready to hit the cold tub and
man.
You know,
God, he was getting used and abused on that. Yeah, so. I don't know which victim it'll be for Virginia, but
it'll be somebody. Because
I think it's going to be somebody.
Here's the thing: if he gets out into the open field and some poor DB's got to tackle him, good luck, because he's a load. Hopefully you strapped your helmet up tight because he'll leave equipment laying behind too. So it's so fun to watch him do it though. You feel bad for the players that he's doing it to in one sense, and then you don't in the other because it's hilarious to watch.
I said the last one, but we got a couple more I want to hit. We'll do those real fast, and then we'll move on to our regular comments. John with another BYG or sell. He says, in November, Pitt beats SMU and puts us all out of our three-way tie misery. Of course, we beat Pitt. BYOG for me. I don't know if Pitt will be the one to beat SMU, but I think SMU is dropping a game.
Yeah. I don't think there's a chance that we end up in a three-way tie. I know it's fun to talk about right now, and it would be absolutely insane because of how the tiebreaker would work. Somebody would definitely get hosed. Essentially.
And I think us as Clemson fans, we kind of have lost a little bit of perspective because we're, drawing up all these three-way tie scenarios. When the reality is we're the only team that's played 4 conference games. Like there's still a whole lot of time left for this to sort out. Most of the teams in the ACC have only played like 2 or 2 or 3 of their conference games, so they have like 5, in some cases 6 games still left to play. I think we're kind of jumping the gun on the three-way tie stuff. I think it'll all work itself out.
Yeah,
and Clemson has to take care of business and keep winning too. So that's the second part of that equation.
Absolutely.
Zachariah, he says BYOG or sell. We break our season single game sack high. I feel like we've had this one before. I think we might have had this one last week, and I don't remember what our season high is.
I thought it was 3, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. Against a quarterback like Calandria, I mean, he's going to escape pressure. He's a guy.
I don't think so. I think it's 3, and I don't think so.
Yeah, I can look this up right now.
Like you say, I mean, he's an athletic guy. He likes getting outside the pocket.
He's not just going to sit back there and take sacks. So
I'd prefer for Clemson to collapse the pocket on him than get a bunch of sacks, because I think that would be more productive against a guy like that, because you get a free rusher off the edge. Calandria is a guy that makes that guy miss, and then he's out in space, kind of creating. So I'd prefer to see Clemson kind of collapse that pocket down on him and force him to make a decision and kind of get sacks that way. But I don't know. I don't think that was
kind of like a Wake Forest game plan.
Yeah, you're just kind of,
win from the
pushing
interior.
guys into him and just, making that pocket really small and uncomfortable for him. But not giving him any lanes to escape.
And even if you don't get sacks, I mean, when he's that's when he'll make the
you don't even really need sacks at that point. Yeah, that's kind of my point, is you don't even really need the sacks. Just kind of make that pocket small and uncomfortable and let him make mistakes. And trust the back end of your defense, because I think they're good enough.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it for the BYOG or sell. Let's see what you guys are talking about otherwise. I lost the banner. You got me.
I got you.
What would I do? All right.
We in this together.
Yes, we are. Zachariah, he says, question for you guys. Their number one wide receiver threat is that 6'4" guy. Yeah. Malachi Fields. Do you guys see us putting our number one corner Terrell on him, or using height with our number two Lucas because he's 6'2"? Well, I mean, really this defense does not, play assignments like that. It's usually they line up with whoever lines up in front of them. If you're field corner, you're field corner. If you're boundary corner, you're boundary corner, and you guard whoever lines up on your side. So like Clemson has never historically done, even under Brent Venables, they didn't really play. They didn't usually stick one guy on a team's best receiver. Other than Jamar Chase in the national championship game, you had, but even then they went away from that when AJ Terrell was
he was getting
victimized. So
he was getting got.
Yeah, he was getting got. So like that's something this defense doesn't do that. There are ways to kind of get guys on their best receiver more often, but they don't play assignments like that. So I wouldn't expect that. And I think you have the guys capable for sure. I mean, Avion Terrell is certainly the smaller corner, but he's also your best. So you want him playing against their best on best at times. But of course, having the length of Lucas is a big deal as well. And Shelton is going to be there at times. It's just all about how you call the defense and what they're lined up in, and that's going to determine what you're doing. But this defense doesn't. Wes Goodwin has never done that, and this defense historically has never done that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to scroll through. David Wood said, "Can Woods and Capehart play both ways the whole game?" I mean, there's no rule against it, but yeah, good luck.
I don't know if their conditioning's to the point where they can play snaps on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, the average football game is give or take 130 plus snaps. So yeah, that would be.
I think Travis Hunter's the only one out there doing that.
And he is certainly. Yeah, Woods and Capehart have a few pounds on him. A
little bit, maybe one or two.
Serge says the Whoopsie Daisy King, Anthony Calandria, is actually so fun to watch. Yeah, he really is an entertaining player. He's definitely.
That's funny, the Whoopsie Daisy King.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to describe him, because he just, sometimes he accidents his way into big plays. Sometimes he accidents his way into turnovers. He plays extremely loose, and he plays free. Like that's just who he is. I mean, when they brought him in last year, it led to some really, really awesome performances, and then some stinkers, and you're like, okay, he's like
that. He's like that typical quarterback where the coach is like always screaming no. And then yes when it works out.
Yeah. That is exactly Anthony Calandria's game. But he's a really talented football player, and I think he's gonna be really good in due time. So
I don't care what Tony Elliott says. I know Calandria's made his blood pressure go up a couple of
I bet. I mean, you can only put up with that for so much if you're a coordinator. You're just like, okay, y'all can't keep doing that. Wet Socks. I can never get over that name. That's just that's a Hall of Fame name right there. Did y'all know they are selling tickets for $28 to honor Spiller? I did not know that.
That's crazy. That's so cool. That's so cool. I did not know that though. That's awesome. Man, you mean we could have went and watched Spiller get inducted to the Clemson Ring of Honor for $28? What are we doing, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be a steal if true. Like
I bet
that's.
you them $28 tickets are way up there though.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, upper deck.
We might would have had to pull it up on our phone so we could see it.
Yeah,
It's so high.
I mean, and it is steep. Like
It's steep, man.
it is so steep, man. Honestly, it's like I'd rather, you know what? Let me chill.
I know what you're about to say, but don't say it. I know what you're about to say, but don't say it.
Tiggs asks, have you seen a clear-cut RB2 yet? I mean, I think you have a. I think it depends on, you know, the game flow and kind of what situationally, you know, what it calls for in terms of, you know, who you roll out there, whether it's Jay Haynes or Keith Adams Jr. I think those two are, I mean, they're very clearly your next two guys.
Yeah.
I still lean Jay Haynes just because he is the change of pace back, and he gives a little bit of a different skill set. But man, Keith Adams, when you get him going, you know, as you saw last week, he's a lot of fun, and he gives you a lot of what Maffa gives you, and that's, if you're a defense, that's just like, oh man, like you take out Phil Maffa, and it's like, okay, they're going to give us their smaller back, and then you see
Yeah.
that guy running at you, and you're like, oh my God, I got to wrap him up too. And,
yeah,
and it's
funny too because Keith.
You could tell Wake Forest by the end they were just they did not want they wanted
Keith
none of
Adams Jr. said that in his interview with the media this week. I was just watching it earlier today, and he was like, you could hear some of the defenders being like, "Man, this dude's tough too, man. Like, what are we doing, bro?" Keith Adams just freaking running over people.
I would hate it too, man.
I would too, man. Like, I mean, it's not like it's much easier to tackle Keith Adams Jr. than it is Phil Maffa.
No, it's not.
And by the time you're at that point in the game, you're just like, can we get out of here, please? Like, this dude's about to beat my head in. Like, I'm about to have permanent brain damage because they brought in this backup that's, you know, full of energy because he hasn't ran a snap all game, and he's just running into us at 100 miles an hour. Good problems to have, though. I like it.
Nightmare, man. Search asks, Jordan, can you use your education to build a time machine? And if so, can I volunteer to jump to a future without Foster coaching UCLA? Good luck to the Tigers the rest of the year. Y'all do a great show. Thanks, man. I'm gonna have to rain check on the time machine thing. Like I'm not. That might be a minute. That might take me a minute, but I understand your frustration. UCLA, they're getting it rough this year.
That's tough.
That sucks too, because I mean, you know, if we get a former player to come and coach, but
right,
sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But I remember his media day speech where he just said, you know, we're UCLA, and you know we're in Los Angeles, and we have a football team. I was like,
oh, okay.
Man.
Thanks.
I was like, oh, that's not a good sign.
Uh-oh. I hope that's not your recruiting spiel.
Yeah, I hope not.
Hey, you want to come to UCLA? You know, we
imagine doing an in-home visit.
And stuff.
Imagine doing an in-home visit and saying, you know, we have professors and buildings and a campus. We have a campus.
We do have a campus.
We have one of those.
We got some dorms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a dining hall.
And we're in LA, so what are your questions?
Yeah.
But no, I feel for you. That sucks, man. But I appreciate your support. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Caleb says, I feel that Sammy Brown is better than Wade. Why do we not play him more? Well, I think Sammy is certainly, you know, just from a potential standpoint. I mean, his potential is through the roof. But at the end of the day, you know, he still experience matters, And Wade Woodaz is playing really good football. I mean, he's had moments here or there, but man, I think he's been really solid. I mean, leads the team in tackles. He's in the right spot more often than not.
Yeah,
I mean, he's doing what you need him to be, especially in recent weeks. I think the linebacker play has really picked up. So I definitely agree that Sammy needs to play more. So I think there's two parts to that statement.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, but I still think Wade Woodaz is the better option at this point.
Yeah.
Now, is Sammy Brown's ceiling higher than Wade Woodaz? Yes. I do believe before he leaves Clemson, he's a much better linebacker, and that's not a slight to Wade Woodaz at all. But to your point, I think he's playing really well this season. If anything, maybe he's lost a step or two of speed with the weight that he put on this offseason. Wade Woodaz definitely doesn't look as fast as he did last season. But he's still, I mean, he's playing so good. I don't think he's done anything to earn less playing time, you know.
Yeah.
And I know Sammy Brown looks good in the spurts that he plays, but I mean, there's a lot that goes into playing that position. And you know, I trust Wes Goodwin. I don't think he's putting Wade Woodaz out there because he just likes him better, you know. So,
right.
You know, I think Sammy Brown's going to be a great linebacker, but I don't know if he's got the defense down to a point where he could take Wade Woodaz's position right now.
Yeah, I think they're doing a nice job of working him in. Obviously you didn't see him a ton, you know, a couple weeks ago against Florida State. I don't know. I don't know exactly why, but they felt like they didn't.
I don't know what happened there. I think he had 7 snaps, and
right.
if I remember correctly, I think Dabo was asked, and he said he missed a couple assignments in those few snaps that he got. So I think he just got rotated out at that point. But you know, he's a young player coming along. He's going to be amazing. He's just not there yet. He'll get there though.
Yeah,
bring him on slow. Give him reps and spurts. Let him grow up slowly throughout the season, and I think that's going to in turn make him a much better player sooner rather than later. Versus just throwing him out there to the wolves.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, he's progressed so nicely. I do think, you know, it's not the thing where you say, okay, we'll see how he looks, and you know, next year will be the time he really gets to come in and play. Like, no, I think he can be a really big impact player for you. Yeah. Like by the end of the year,
I think his role on the defense will continue to grow this season, right? Like it'll evolve. Like by the time we get to, you know, hopefully ACC championship time and, you know, hopefully playoff time, I'm expecting Sammy Brown's role to be much bigger than it is, you know, going into week 7.
Absolutely.
So I think
just because he has picked up so much and he is really, you know, coming along. So, I'm not worried necessarily, and I think you'll see him more. I suspect you'll see more of him this weekend too. So, you know, I'm not worried necessarily about Sammy. David talking about Ashton Hampton as well. Yeah, in reference to the corner situation. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be out there a ton as well, and he's come along so well. Like third street. I mean, it's really incredible how he's come in and just been really. I mean, he's not been perfect by any means, but he has been. It's just impressive, you know, as a summer enrollee to come in and work your way into this defense because.
He's going to be special, man.
Yeah, he's going to be really good.
He's going to be one of them ones by the time his time's done as a Clemson Tiger that we look back on. And
yeah, he's one of the most like ready-made freshmen. Yeah, we've seen come through here, and in terms of corner, like there have not been many that just came in day one where they were like that.
And with Mike Reed's ability to develop corners, I mean. I can't wait to see what that dude turns into.
Yeah,
It's gonna
Absolutely,
be
man. It's going to be fun. And he's massive, has all the prototypical traits that you want. Yeah, he's going to be really good.
such a big corner too. Like, I mean, he's like safety size, but with the skill set of a corner, which is, I mean, he's a freak, dude.
Yeah, he's good. Eric Watkins asked, do we potentially flip a quarterback like Bryce Baker? Well, names have not emerged yet. I've had suspicions, but, we have not. There's not a clear direction that they've gone that I know of. But he's a guy that Bryce Baker, you mentioned the quarterback, a 4-star quarterback committed to North Carolina. He's definitely a guy I would give a look. He's a guy that they did have they have known about for a while. Another guy, Sawyer Anderson in Texas. He worked out with Blake Hebert back when Clemson was initially courting him, and he has a really strong relationship with Garrett Riley. That could be an answer. That could be an answer to your quarterback situation. He's much smaller. He's like 5'11", like 180 pounds. Like, he's not a physical specimen, but he can absolutely spin it. He can spin the rock, man.
Yeah.
And he's just playmaking ability outside the pocket. He can work the ball at multiple different arm slots. He's a really good player as well. And there's other names. So we'll see where they go. But from what's been reported, there have been some quarterbacks that are committed to other schools that have reached out to Clemson. But those names have not surfaced.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't
Clemson's
know.
not going to tell you any of that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff will be handled on the down low. But there's possibilities out there. I don't think Clemson's left without options at this point. It doesn't appear to be that the sky is falling and Clemson just has no options.
The plan, and Dabo stated this week, the plan is for them to take a quarterback. So how that manifests, whether it's through the high school ranks or
the
in the portal, remains to be seen. So
yeah,
it just gotta.
Okay,
We'll see what direction they go.
Why did Hebert decommit? Well, you can go watch Jordan's video that he posted earlier this week on the channel. So go check that out after tonight's show. But the short of it is that Notre Dame paid him a bunch of money to come there.
Yeah, and because Notre Dame lost their blue chip quarterback.
They lost their quarterback to Auburn, and then they went and took our quarterback.
Yep. And the Brunswick school, the school in Connecticut that or Massachusetts that no, it's Connecticut. The Brunswick school in Connecticut. He lived in Massachusetts before. Is actually the school of 2 players currently committed to Notre Dame, and they also have a and another thing that I did not know was that Blake Hebert was actually living with a host family in Connecticut, and that family they're also Notre Dame fans. So there were a lot of things.
I wonder why he committed.
So there were certainly a lot of things pulling him in the direction of Notre Dame, not just from an NIL standpoint, but just people around him. I don't blame the kid. No hard. Yeah. So it is what he made a decision.
In the world of NIL and the current climate of college football, these guys got to make what they think is the best decision for them. And it's easy to be, I think, emotional as fans and to be like angry about it. But at the end of the day, if that was you or your son or your cousin or your brother or whoever, you would want them to make the best decision for them. And, it's hard to say no to some of this money that these players are being offered. I mean, you imagine, like, I can't think back to being, 16, 17, 18, whatever some of these guys are, and being offered, numbers like that. Like, that's tough to say no to, man. Like, it's easy for us as Clemson fans to be like, well, should be all in. I mean, I can't blame them, honestly.
Yep. It is what it is. And we'll see, again, we'll see how Clemson, pivots and how they move on. But
I think Clemson will be okay.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. Certainly not ideal. It's not what you wanted to happen. But I think Clemson will be able to adjust and get somebody in here that'll help contribute.
Wet Sock says, when will the spinoff of this show happen where y'all just talk politics with no filter? Yeah, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. You have to be on the before show or after show.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, for that to come up for sure.
I don't think those behind the scene clips will ever.
No, they will not.
Ever make it through.
They will. Those will not serve.
That would probably not be in the best interest of us trying to grow a show and a channel to talk politics.
Because somebody's going. Yeah.
Either way, whatever way you go,
people don't get mad.
There's a large portion of people that will disagree and not like you because of whatever. So
yeah.
Really politics to the other YouTubers.
Let me see. Somebody talking about David asking about Jackson Arnold. Yeah, that would be. I don't want to. Honestly, I don't want to crap on that because I think Jackson Darnold. Oh, Jesus, not Darnold. Arnold. I think I think he has a ton of talent. I know he was benched at Oklahoma. I think, man, they were not very good around him. So, honestly, that would not be a terrible pickup, honestly, if you were to go that route, if you were to enter the portal and you go do that. Plus, you have the Brent Venables connection. Maybe he could steer you that way. I wouldn't hate it. I think Jackson Arnold has a lot of raw ability, and I just think while he certainly was not playing well when he started for Oklahoma, they were not very good around him. That offensive line is horrendous. Their wide receiver room is banged up, but multiple guys out. He didn't have a whole lot to work with either. So
yeah.
I wouldn't actually hate that, even though he has not played, because he's shown flashes this year. It's not like he was all bad.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't be upset about it.
Abito says, at the same time, in reference to Blake Keeper, he said he made the coaches promise that they won't take another quarterback. They kept their promise, and then he turned around and did that. I do blame it. Well, I mean,
yeah,
I definitely see that perspective for sure. And ideally, for Clemson, it's always been, you commit to us, we commit to you, type of mentality. Anyway, but it's not the reality, and it's despite even before the NIL era, that was always I don't want to say like it doesn't exist, but it just, players are never going to be held to the same standard as the school when it comes to that. Like there's nothing holding them and binding them to stick with their commitment. I mean, that's why I respect the kids that do it a ton, but that many of them don't do that, and they're not necessarily obligated to. So that's the reality. And I think Notre Dame gave him a really big opportunity, good opportunity. He'll be closer to home as well. So there were a lot of things in his ear. I don't want to say it was just an easy decision and he flipped. It was you're going to give me this money. Like I think Blake really did like Clemson and was excited to end up here. But sometimes things arise, and Notre Dame had, to be fair, they did offer him a while back. So he had been on their radar a long time. It wasn't like, oh, we lost our quarterback, now let's just go find somebody to go take. And Blake was like, oh, yep, Notre Dame, okay, I'll come. No, he had a relationship with them, and they had definitely been around and present during his recruitment. So I didn't necessarily expect that it would end up in him flipping, but it just sometimes that's how it goes. And Clemson does the same thing with other, with kids committed to other schools. Like they're not always, they don't just completely cease communication when a kid commits all the time. Sometimes you have, guys still in communication, and so you keep those channels open. And that's what Notre Dame did, and it paid off for them when they needed it to.
Yep.
Credit to them. And again, like I said on my video, like I don't think you lost a game-changing prospect by any means. I liked him, but I don't think you lost a game a can't-miss prospect. So I think the opportunity to rebound is certainly there for Clemson, and we'll see what direction they decide to go there.
David. I saw that comment. I didn't know if you were going to put it up or not, but I saw it.
That's great, man. That's a Hall of Famer right there.
5-star comment right
5-star comment.
That's hilarious.
Me too, David. Me too.
Oh man, Hugh Freeze knows all about that.
Hustler Inc. says Clemson should take Jackson Arnold. He has more upside than Vizina. Good, healthy quarterback battle after Klubnik. I mean, yep. I could see it, but
I don't disagree.
I think the thing is I mean, even with the Jackson Arnold discussion, I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he expects to be the starter. Yeah. So if you could get him, That'd be great. More the merrier. More competition that'd be great. And I'm sure Garrett Riley wouldn't be upset to have Jackson Arnold and Chris Vizina to go battle it out. But
the other thing though is we got to keep Chris Vizina around.
Yeah, that's true.
No guarantee he stays around come season's end.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I tend to think he will, but you never know.
Yeah, I think he will too. But if he doesn't. Yeah. You really are in a situation at the quarterback position if he decides to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, because if you get, you get Cade, presuming you get Cade back next year, that's great. Okay, so you have your starter, but obviously you're not going to have any real depth. Yeah, and then obviously the season following 2026 it's going to be
That's the worry too, right? Cade.
You're going to have two freshmen.
Not that I don't want Cade to come back. Obviously, I would welcome Cade coming back. I think all Clemson fans would at this point. But that could also trigger a transfer of Chris Vizina. Is he willing to sit another season? I don't know. That's for him to answer. But you get a Cade back, which is awesome for next year. But then if you lose a Chris Vizina, then you have no depth. To your point, so. Clemson's certainly in an interesting situation with the QB position. Could get more interesting, more cloudy, more uncertain if Chris Vizina decides to go elsewhere. But I think he's on board. I hope he sticks around and continues to develop. And is ready to take the reins. But we shall see.
We shall see. Oh, you know what? And this, did we ever? Oh man, I feel terrible. Did we ever hit Jackson's super chat earlier?
I did not know we had a super chat. So
okay,
no, we
just got
not.
one from Zachariah. So let's do that one first, and then we'll hit Jackson's. Oh man, I feel terrible now. We don't, man. It's like every once in a while we'll like,
man.
What happened? I think maybe because that was right when the ad break hit, and then I forgot to mention it because I saw it and then didn't put it up. But Zachariah, thank you for the $2. He says, "Don't worry, guys. I'll go to Clemson as a walk-on quarterback."
Well, hey, problem solved. Hey, we got nothing to worry about. We got nothing to worry about. Hey, Zach's gonna be in there for depth. We got it. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for the support.
Oh man, our problems are solved. The quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
And Jackson Johnson earlier in the show, fantastic. One of our moderators and one of the staples of the Voice of College Football Network.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm buttering you up a little bit, my man, because we missed your super chat, so I'm sorry. But thank you so much for the $5. And if you're still here, I hope I get to answer your question. But he says the question everyone should ask is not whether Dabo Swinney was behind, but was he ahead of the curve in the portal? And I think that is a very interesting perspective in something that I think a lot of people have just kind of, because it's been easy to pile on Dabo and his stance and all of that, and kind of just blindly follow everybody else's opinions of how he goes about his program, that they never really stop to think, well, some of the things he said does have merit, and what some of the things that he's talking about in his reasons for why he does things the way he does might actually benefit him down the line. And I don't think a lot of people gave that much consideration. It was just Dabo's killing his program, and he's just being willingly stubborn. And there's no reason why he's not catching up with the times and all of that.
Yeah.
And
I think that is an interesting question and an interesting perspective, and the verdict's still out on it, right? But you can certainly respect his steadfastness, I guess, in the way that he builds and operates his program. He's not just going to do something just because everyone else is doing it. And I think that's something you can respect, whether you agree with his stance or utilization of the portal up until this point. I think different Clemson fans have an array of opinions on it. We don't all agree, and we don't all see it the same way. But there's something to be said about being the leader of your program, being very steadfast in the way that they conduct themselves and the way that they run their program. And it's working out, at least for this season. Like I said, the verdict's still out. Still remains to be seen if long-term success can be garnered from the way that Dabo Swinney goes about things. But it's certainly working out for him right now.
Yeah. And I think, you see the positives for in the approach that he chose to go about. And it took a couple of years. And I think, last season it was very easy to dunk on him and say, all of that, all the struggles that they went through was because of Dabo's stubbornness and unwillingness to change how he runs the program. But I think you're seeing this year that his commitment to the guys that he brought in has created a really, really good football team, and a team capable of, making the playoff. And once you get there, I mean, you never know. I've said, consistently, like, I don't necessarily think this team is a national championship team, but honestly, with the way the landscape of college football is right now and how vulnerable everybody is looked at times, other than Texas, I don't know. I think things are up for grabs, and so if you keep doing your thing and you get there, I think this could be a season where maybe things can fall your way.
Yeah, and the good thing for Clemson right now is they control their destiny, right?
Yep, exactly.
As long as you show up on Saturday every single week and you take care of business, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. Where you're ranked right now matters. What people think about, excuse me, Dabo's stance in the portal doesn't matter. What people think about Clemson beating up on lesser opponents doesn't matter. None of it matters, right? Show up on Saturday, take care of business, and you'll create the opportunities at the end of the season to either prove yourself right or prove others right.
Absolutely. I think it's a good place to end us off and wrap up our show.
Well, guys, we got 42 people in the live chat still hanging out with us. Thank you guys so much for showing up each and every week and hanging out with me and Jordan here on the All In Show. You guys are truly the reason that this show is what it is. I love our comment section. I love the community being built, the regulars that are in here each and every week, chatting it up with each other, sometimes arguing, going back and forth. It's a lot of fun. We have fun with you guys at the end of the show in the comment section as well. So thank you guys so much for being a part of the All In Show. I hope that you guys will continue to share this show with everybody else and get more people in. Like I said, we're on the road to 6,000 subscribers. Hit that like button while you're in here before you head out for the night. And again, just thank you guys for showing up and being a part of what me and Jordan do here.
Yeah, guys. And keep supporting us, and we'll keep giving you guys the content. And seriously, we greatly appreciate it. That video I did earlier this week, we're definitely going to try to do more, short form videos like on breaking news and stuff, like not just, uploading just to upload. So stay on the lookout for those. And, and I'm thinking about maybe doing some more recruiting content in that format. So stay tuned. And when we've got some big things that we're working on to add on to this show in the near future. So y'all stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Stay tuned. We got plenty of stuff coming in the future. Look for some announcements in the coming weeks about that kind of stuff. But shout out Jackson for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much for being one of our moderators and supporting the show. Really do appreciate it. And thank you, Zachariah, for the $2 super chat as well. Appreciate your support and your involvement in our show here. But guys, that'll do it for tonight. Don't forget, we got the post-game live video coming at you this Saturday, immediately following the Clemson game, probably around 3:30, 3:45-ish, depending on how long the game takes to end, but about 15 minutes after the clocks hit zero, me and Jordan will fire up the StreamYard. We'll hop on. We'll give you a complete breakdown of everything we saw in the game and our thoughts, and then field some of your questions and comments as well. So I hope you'll stop by for that. Remember, hit that like button on your way out. Until next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.